Hello, everyone, and welcome to WP Roundtable. My name is Jason Crawford, coming to you from Medellin, Colombia.
And I'm Mark. I'm here temporarily. If the baby starts crying, I'll be gone.
Hey guys, I'm Kyle. Thanks for joining us for episode 91. We've got a very special guest today, and we're really excited to talk with him. His name is Brandon Dove, and he works over at Pixel Jar. They're a pretty awesome company, and Brandon is a pretty cool, smart guy, and I think we've got a lot of fun things to talk about. So Brandon, hello, and thank you for joining the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So before we dive into learning all about Brandon, we're going to cover our quick picks of the week real fast. So I will share mine right off the bat. Actually, I didn't bookmark it as quickly as I thought I would, but it's right over here. I thought it was very interesting that I saved a bunch of links, and I'm picking which one was my favorite. Otto wrote a post over on make.wordpress.org/plugins about selling your plugins in the WordPress .org repository. I thought that was kind of an interesting post about, for those of you who have plugins in the repository, you may be familiar with this unsolicited contact that you'll sometimes get from typically marketing companies and stuff offering to purchase your plugin from you. And so Otto addresses this very well in the article, and it's something to be aware of. For anybody who has plugins out there, it's a pretty common thing to get these kinds of inquiries, especially if you have a plugin with a lot of active installs. There are usually ulterior motives to people trying to buy the plugin from you, and there's just some important information you need to consider when dealing with those kinds of contacts. So take a look at that, and that's my quick pick of the week. Jason, you got something?
Yes, sir. So my pick of the week, way back in like episode 3, the pre-Kyle Maurer days, for anybody who knows that we actually existed before Kyle. There was an episode where we were discussing like servers and optimal servers and whatnot, and I don't know if I posted it live or if it was an off-air thing, but I was trying to find good servers outside of the U.S. So I came across this article on Nomad Capitalist about servers, offshore servers, and servers outside of the U.S. and whatnot, and so which ones are good and which ones might not be. So anyways, I encourage anybody to check that out. It's especially if you're doing business outside of the U.S. I'll throw the link in the show notes, and it's just nomadcapitalist.com, and you can just search for servers and you'll find it.
Cool. Brandon, do you have anything to share with us?
Well, I happen to know that tomorrow tickets for WordCamp San Diego are going up at 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So if you're going to be in the San Diego area, or you probably want to, because honestly, who doesn't want to be in the San Diego area, probably should buy your tickets and head out there.
I agree. It's going to be a pretty special event, and you're going to see a lot of us there. Actually, 3 out of the 4 people in this panel actually are going to be present at that event, as far as I can tell.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely. Buy your tickets. Thanks for the tip. All right. So, I don't know if Mark has anything to share. He'll probably be back and joining us pretty soon, but let's just start talking about Brandon. I've been excited and looking forward to chatting with you for some time, or since you had agreed to come on the show. So why don't you help us out a little bit, and let's kind of start at the beginning and talk about what you were doing before you got into WordPress, before you got into the web or anything like that. What did your early career look like? What did you want to do? What did you start doing? And then we'll go from there.
Sure, yeah. Actually, when I went to college, I went for animation and film and television, things like that. So I had a very different starting point, but where that started for me was I was using Director. For those of you who don't know, it's what CD-ROMs used to be made of. I know you guys are probably too young to know that, but I started out with CD-ROM authoring, things like that, and because it was a Macromedia product at the time, for you young kids, it's Adobe. But before that, I got into Flash and was making all the awesome skip intro animations that everyone had on their websites back in the day. So really, I started getting into ActionScript and really trying to program, make more interactive things in the web, and kind of found like that was where I really like to be, is the tinkering of interactivity and programming kind of stuff. So that led me into HTML. I was working for a .com in the late 90s and picked up ASP, which is terrible. But you got to start somewhere, so picked up HTML, ASP there, and really worked there for a while, and like a lot of people in the time, got laid off due to the bubble bursting, as it will, and found myself as a freelancer. I didn't really have too much in the way of contacts to get things going, but found a local boutique shop and started doing some flash animations for, again, some CDs that they were doing. And that's actually where I met my business partner, Jeff. We worked there together for about 5 years. And we definitely hit it off right away. We have very similar sort of family structures. His wife's a teacher, my wife's a teacher. We both got married literally like weeks apart from each other, so very quickly to become friends. So that was kind of cool. Like I said, I worked there for a few years and started learning some PHP. We were definitely working a lot on Macs, so we started out with Lasso, which I'm sure, again, a lot of you don't even know about, but it was a very minimal database structured language that Apple was pushing at the time, and just kind of found our way into PHP, and we're making our own content management systems for a while for clients, things like that in PHP. And for me, the trigger hit when my wife and I were at the point where we wanted to start having kids, and so she got pregnant, and that same day I quit my job, started my career at PixelJar, and I was a couple months later is when Jeff joined, and we just kind of took it away from there.
That's amazing. So you spent what were the time frames here when you started doing flash animation for that agency, and then a few years later when you decided to set it out on your own?
Yeah, so I was back in, I started working with Jeff in 2001, and at the boutique company, and we worked there again for until about 2004. I was freelancing a little bit before 2001, but I was working. In October of 2004 was officially my last hurrah at that company, and split off, and just really I had one client to my name that I was going to start with, and just kind of went from there. We actually, once Jeff joined, he was early 2005. We kind of did our own custom CMS stuff still for a couple years until we found WordPress in about 2007, and did a lot of WordPressy stuff through that, but really made it our core focus in about 2009.
Wow. So that's a long time using the platform as kind of your go-to tool, and a long time. So you've been full-time PixelJar for how many years now?
Since 2004, so
12 years.
About 12 years, and
That's a long time.
It is a long time. Thinking back on it now, yeah. Like I said, all you youngins, no.
So since you keep bringing it up, I gotta ask, how old are you?
I'm 38.
Oh, come on. Youngins.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I have the urge to pick on Mark, but I don't want to do it while I know he's listening, but he can't defend himself, so we'll save it for later.
We pick a lot on Mark.
That's cool.
But he deserves it. Anyway, so you've been with doing the PixelJar thing for a really long time. How was I'm curious to learn a little bit of how the company's evolved. You were doing different things, serving different clients, offering different services when you got started. How has it shifted? You could talk a little bit about the tech. You could talk a little bit about the model. What's different now between then?
Yeah, I mean, so when we first started, it wasn't just web stuff. I mean, we were doing print design. I was actually designing all the sites that we did, which I do none of these days, which is a good thing. So I started out designing. We were doing DVD authoring, CD authoring, print, like I said. We were doing web stuff. I mean, really anything to make money at that point was what we were doing. So we had a lot of clients and a lot of at the time we were doing a lot of like hosting of websites through a third-party partner, and just like I said, just trying to get money in the door and make it happen. When you have a newborn on the line, like you got to hustle for everything. So that's really what I was doing, and over the time we've obviously become more comfortable. We work a lot with Robert Ninehouse from Nine Studios now. He does pretty much all of the design work that we bring in. So I focus strictly on back-end development, and Jeff is predominantly front-end development for us now. We have pretty significantly diverse roles within most projects we take on, and we have a project manager now that's working with us, which has been a really, really great, really recent addition to our team. So that's been really amazing. It's definitely boosted my productivity about 3,000%. So.
Have you really always been the two-person team since the beginning? Has the size of your team changed at all?
No, it's always been just Jeff and I.
Was that a very deliberate choice, or did you ever really strongly consider growing to a larger size?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So definitely Jeff and I had a very specific idea of what our work was going to be and what the level of that work needed to be. And so, it was really hard for us to bring on like a junior developer, because it would really, I think, one of the instinctive things as developers that we think of running a business is, you need another developer because that will be, that will free you up to do more development. And the hardest thing to do is to replace yourself, because you are, you, and you have your ways of doing things. And so we actually did hire, we hired a full-time developer. He was a little more junior. And for us, it just didn't work out because while he knew WordPress and knew, some things, he just had a different way of doing things. So we spent a lot of time, trying to coach him and bring him into the way that we do things. And it was, instead of adding, 8 hours a day to our workload, it was really subtracting 4, because we were working with them directly to try to get them to do things in the way that we would do things. And it just didn't increase productivity like we thought it would. And it turns out what we spend most of our time doing that is totally not what we should be doing as developers was managing projects. And that's why, again, hiring our project manager to do what he does is infinitely more valuable to our business than having another developer right now.
Well, can you tell us like some of the changes? Like what exactly, somebody who's been like dealing with the business side, bringing in just a project manager and not other employees, that's a bit unique. Can you share with us how that, like what exactly responsibilities is that person taking over?
For the project manager?
Yes.
Yeah, so he's sort of we call him an AM/PM. He's an account manager and a project manager, so he handles a lot of the incoming requests that come in for new business. He handles current projects that are going on. He really is the center point of communication for a lot of our, especially our newer clients. There are some longer-term legacy clients that we have that are used to working with either Jeff or myself directly, and so we've maintained that just to make sure that the clients are comfortable and they have a familiar sense of communication. So he does just really a ton of stuff between like creating proposals, really outlining retainers, with the client. Like he'll meet with the client a month ahead of time to plan for the next month. Things like even just writing emails back to clients that we would spend, an hour trying to figure out what the actual message should be. Like that was an hour taken away from our development. And so putting that in someone who we trust's hands really just changed the way that we're able to be productive.
And on the more important note, how sad are you that you're not doing Flash projects anymore?
Really sad, really, really sad. No, not at all. It's funny because Flash, like it hit this point like between ActionScript 2 and ActionScript 3 that like the learning curve for it went like kind of from a 45-degree angle to like a 90-degree angle. It just kept getting exponentially more difficult to keep up with the changes that they were making, and so it was really hard. I mean, I imagine there's a good comparison there to some WordPress stuff too. Like there are some features these days that are being developed, especially on the speed that WordPress is being developed, that people are having a hard time keeping up with, and I think it's a problem that technology has at this point. Is you've got this steady motion of forward momentum, and you're looking towards oh, I know if we get to this next step, we're going to be this much closer to the following step, and you start looking off in the distant future, and during that process you start speeding up your cycles and speeding up development, and some people I'm sure are being left behind. A lot of this change with all the JavaScript development that's going to be happening with the JSON API and things like that. It's I'm sure it's going to leave people who are very comfortable with PHP and building WordPress things behind.
It's not particularly on topic, but I've been thinking about kind of what you're pointing out here. And I also grew up about the same, about 3 years younger than you are. So I grew up probably with some of the same technologies, but I kind of disappeared from the tech field for a while, and then tried to get back into it. And even now, I struggle understanding all these different things. And I imagine somebody who like grew up with the internet, just there, no dial-up, no understanding what a modem was, or having to deal with AOL and trying to come into this world. And how is that future going to look when they don't understand the basic, the foundation the house is built on, so to speak? I think it's an interesting thing to look at in the future.
I think definitely. I mean, what I really enjoyed over the last year or so is seeing people break down what those underlying technologies are. Zach Tolman is one of my favorite WordPress people, and he did such a really good talk on TLS and SSL, and really broke it down in a very visual, personal form that like anyone could relate to. And those things are going to be the most important things. Like when we start talking about HTTP2 and TLS, like all these things that are going to be really super important to websites in the future, unless you're like a full stack developer and you have this depth of understanding about how things work, there's going to become a point when you just like don't know what to do because you don't understand the bits and bobs of the internet and how things work and how data is transmitted. That if you don't know what that is, you're going to be less desirable to hire because you just don't have those skills.
It's going to be harder to get those skills as well. I felt like SSL, and I probably had to like really learn half of it, and then like half of it I just understood because of encrypted radio communications in the military. All these frequency hopping and some of these other aspects that like just transferred over clearly. But then there's this other half that I had to like sit down and study and try to imagine somebody who never had any of that experience, trying to jump in and get a job in this world. I think that's going to be a challenge in the future.
Yeah. I think rather than specific technologies, specific implementations of technologies, it's going to be more like, do you understand the fundamentals of how this thing works? How data gets transmitted, how secure connections are made, how to optimize literally the pipes instead of the actual application layer. So those are definitely going to be really important things to know in the coming future.
I think Kyle's going to kill me because I've gotten off of the topic of branding and onto the topic of future generations.
Oh, those generations.
Yeah. So going back to Pixel Jar, though, Brandon, I'm curious. Yeah. Thanks, Jason. But I'd love to understand, especially for someone like yourself who's been doing this so long, as with the same business, same brand, the same team for as many years as you've been doing it. I'm interested in understanding the evolution of your business, not from a technical perspective, but from more an administrative and um, customer perspective. What have been some of those key moments where you and Jeff agreed we need to make a change in how we do business? Maybe it's a change in our pricing, or a change in the services we're going to offer, or a change in the way we communicate to customers, or the way that we manage projects, or a number of things. What are some of those key moments that made you decide to make a change? What was it and why?
I think most of those changes come from severe pain. It's usually when you've gotten yourself into a point where you're working ridiculous hours, you're sleepless, and you just can't you can't keep going the way you're going and survive essentially. So it's one of those moments for us, I think we always kind of knew that we needed to be able to handle a lot of projects if we wanted to make the kind of money that we wanted to make. And being that there's only two of us, we would get to points where we had 4 or 5 projects on at a time. And with us managing those, it was insane because we'd be spending all day and all night responding to emails. And the first thing I would do is wake up and check my phone for emails, or check it for messages, or check servers to make sure they didn't go down. And it just became a point where it was like, this is ridiculous. This is not what we want to be doing. And finding those trusted partners. Like I said, we used to do a lot of things like hosting websites and providing that service for our clients. And so the first person they would call if their website went down was us. And that's a terrible idea. There's way more reputable people who have teams of DevOps people who are awake all night, in shifts and dealing with servers being up and things like that. So finding good hosting partners was something great that we picked up on. Finding somebody else to answer those emails so that we weren't the people who were doing that. I think just identifying the things that made us successful. For being a small team, we perform at a really high level, and I think that we realized design wasn't something we were super strong at, but development was, and we cared about the details of what a website looked like in the end. So Jeff really being very consistent about what he produces on the front end, and I spend a lot of time learning about the sort of underlying architecture of WordPress, and that being a strong suit of mine. So those two things we were really great at, but managing projects always fell behind, because when you answer a phone call and you're talking to a client for 2 hours about some feature, and then they say, hey, cool, where are we on that? And you're like, well, I've been talking to you for 2 hours, like I haven't done anything on it. So finding somebody to facilitate those meetings, take the notes, and make sure that all the actions, all the things that need to get done are written down in an actionable format. Those are things that we learned because of failures. Because there's times when clients are unhappy because you haven't fulfilled a promise because you've been talking to them or trying to eat dinner or something like that. Things like that are definitely learning moments.
So one of the things that we always like to talk about is the perfect time to do so right now. What are some of those stories that maybe you could tell us about projects gone wrong, nightmares from the past that still haunt you sometimes, and you're so glad they're over?
Yeah, I mean, without getting into particulars, one of the things that we do, and I think one of the reasons why we're really successful, is because we invest ourselves in all of our clients' work. So we, not financially, but we care about what their results are. We care about how they do business, why they do business, all that kind of stuff. And what happens is sometimes we get too invested, and we take everything very personally about what happens with it. And so we've had clients in the past who, have pretty good ideas about things that will make their website, great, but they don't have startup capital because they are a startup, right? And so one of the things that we'll do is, what we used to do, we don't do this anymore by rule, but we would go, okay, great, like we'll let you pay off your balance by, we'll offset whatever the initial money that you make down the road, and we'll take that as part of our income, and then once we're done, we'll vest like a certain amount of percentage in whatever the profits of the business are. And while that sounds like an amazing idea because, cool long-term benefits, like you're relying on somebody else who may not have the drive that you have. And for us, we put in so much heart and soul into every piece of thing that, clients may be like, this is going to make it the best. And, launching it would probably be the best thing to do rather than change the font color from blue to red or whatever. So, like, as a rule, we definitely don't do any sort of, like, tradesies anymore, I guess is the best way to put them. Because, it's just bitten us one too many times. And we really like the idea of making somebody's business successful, but if they're not going to put in the legwork to make that happen, like, it just doesn't make any sense for us.
I'm so curious if any of those ever like really worked out, and you ever looked back on any that and said, actually that wasn't so bad.
I think there's one very successful one for us that, and I'll talk about that one too. I mean, we built a website back in 2010 for a company called Crochet Kids, and they have such an amazing mission. Like, basically they employ women in Uganda to make beanies, and they employ women in Peru to make like stitch or like cut and sew clothing. It's all handmade. Inside all the tags, like all the women's name who made it is on the tag. So there's like this really personal connection with the consumer and the production line, which is really cool. And so we did them a really cheap website, but put the same amount of effort into it. And like literally the only like give back that we got was we set them up with an authorized.net account, and so we get like a nickel for every transaction they make, but they do a ton of transactions, and it's not like billions of dollars a month, but it's like it's a nice like, oh, this is still kind of paying off a little bit, like, every year it's a nice little put in our pocket that we can go, what, this is awesome. And we usually end up spending it back on beanies from them anyway, but it's like, it's like, it's just something that's a nice, kind of successful thing. And they're the kind of client who, like, they would do anything for their brand, and that's the kind of people that you hope all of those tradesies turn into, but they never do.
That's a good story.
Would you be willing to share who that is?
Oh yeah, it's Crochet Kids. I can give you a link later. It's
yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, but they're super awesome mission, and they really do great work.
That's cool.
And I'd like to ask, did you ever have one that had the potential, and you saw it, and you helped them, and then they just disappeared, or didn't meet that potential?
I think that's tough because the people, like, I don't think we would get into it if we didn't think that they had potential. A lot of these people have ideas that aren't something that we would have come up with in the first place. So they're not really like our niche or our customers. And so I think that's why we like, oh, this is a good diversification type thing. But, it's just one of those things where you just can't count on a client to have that amount of passion about their own business, really that you do to put into it. So I would say 90%, maybe closer to 99% of the time, it's a losing cause to do any sort of, I'll do this work for you up front, bro, and then you'll give me some money on the back end, because that just doesn't happen.
It resonates with me really well, because I did one time, and the same deal that you're talking about, and the guy got a year and a half of back orders in the first 2 months of his website. He got so freaked out. he actually shut his website down rather than talking to me about not allowing orders.
Yeah. See, I mean, that's just the thing. Like, the fear of success is real, and so many people have it. If you're not ready for being successful, then you're probably going to fail right off the bat.
Yeah, it's a hard one to determine because that was exactly what it was for him. I even managed to. He told me why he shut the site down. I was like, well, what do you need? He said, I need this piece of equipment that costs $100,000. I went out and found him somebody who was ready to invest in it. He was too scared to take the leap.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Brandon, how did AdSanity come about?
So AdSanity actually was one of those situations where one of our clients had come to us with a very specific need. They had been using a different ad platform for WordPress for a while, and it was just, it had been something we had used in the past, but it had gone through some rough patches and wasn't performing as well as they wanted it to. And they, their site was doing something like 8 million page views a month, and they had probably about close to 50 ads on their homepage, and it was just bringing their site down almost all the time. So it was a situation where we're like, you know what, custom post types had just been released in WordPress, and we were like, this is kind of a no-brainer. We could implement a very, very simple sort of ad manager using custom post types and do some basic tracking on that, and we could make it work. So it came out of a client need. We built it for them with the intent, and they had the understanding that we were going to sell it at the end. They wanted us to because they knew a bunch of people in their industry had the exact same problem. So for us, it was like, this was one of those investment cases that actually paid off too. We did end up building it for them, on our dime, and once we built it for them specifically, we sort of pulled it out and abstracted it a little bit so that it could be bundled up and sold as a plugin. And from there, it's just been kind of history, I guess.
So then today, what does your typical client look like? Are they all over the place, or what's your specialty?
Yeah, it's clients for PixelJar or clients for AdSanity?
Oh, for PixelJar. I'm sorry. I'll go back to PixelJar.
Okay. Right now, it's I would say it's a very high-end client. It's someone who needs very specific needs, like integrations with the kind of platforms they might be working with, whether it's CRM, whether it's dealing with legacy systems, things like that. API is definitely something we work with all the time. These are typically people who have been established as a brand, and they need a redesign, or they need to just be taken into a spot in their industry that is more focused on I guess leading the pack of their industry. And so they, like I said earlier, we work a lot with Robert Ninehouse and his design aesthetic. If you haven't seen him, I strongly encourage you to check him out, because he's a really great designer. And so we put all of our trust and all of our clients' trust in him to build the designs for that. And so we work on the integrations and all that kind of stuff for them, doing the front end work. Jeff's, like I said, he's really dialed into making that the best experience for users as it can be. And really, I focus on a lot of the workflow pieces and how the client really interacts with their content. So.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say this, this is like just something to make you feel uncomfortable for a minute. So
Thanks.
no problem. You probably don't know this, so I'm gonna say it here anyway, which is you and Jeff are probably the single biggest reason that I am involved with WordPress today, because my first WordCamp was WordCamp San Diego. I had just been developing in WordPress for about 2 months. Jeff did a presentation on, I think it was actions and filters or something like that. And then you sat down with Greg, my partner, and like spent, I don't know, half your day working through a problem that we were having on a site. You may not even remember it, or you may. And I was like, and my reaction was, if this community is this awesome that these people will spend their time to help kind of up-and-comers learn how to do things, then it's something I want to be a part of. So I've always, you know, you don't realize it, but you and Jeff are actually responsible for a lot of why I am still involved in the community the way that I am today. So I just wanted to say that, make you squirm, and say thanks. So.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I'll just say for me, like that same, like I have those same stories. Because that's kind of how I got involved in WordPress too. I mean, I went to my first WordCamp in 2009, and like I came back and I was like, Jeff, we have to put one of these on in Orange County. There's nothing like this here. Like, we have to do this because it's just so like I'm just infected with WordPress right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, like I went to I was in WordCamp San Francisco, and then like a month later, like I scrounged together money to go to WordCamp New York, and like by that time I was like, this is where it's at. Like, you know, WordPress needs to like be spread around a lot more. And you know, Steve Zengit, obviously in Orange County here, he created the meetup group here, and right around that same time, it was just like this, like everybody was there to kind of learn and teach each other, and it was, you know, it was very selfless, and it was, you know, like just being able to get up and share and talk about shared experiences and stuff like that made working from home and, you know, really just being in a small team, like it made it feel bigger, and it made it manageable and not like make you feel alone, like you're at like you're just at home working. And like I think that in Orange County here we have a really strong community that that, you know, any one of us would go to bat for each other to, you know, try to help each other find a job, or, you know, if we ever needed, like we had too many projects, we could shift them to a different company, and it would very much be an easy transition for any of us. So, you know, I feel the exact same way.
I know there's plenty of others who would echo what Mark said as well, too. Even our good mutual friend Adam Silver has reflected before on a number of occasions how Brandon Dove and Jeff Zinn had a huge influence on him, and when he went to his first WordCamp, and he does say hello as well.
Oh, that's sweet.
And I want to say for my part too how helpful Brandon has been in my encounters with him in previous camps when I've had technical problems that were just melting my noodle. And Brandon was really able to shed a lot of light on it. It's just some pretty awesome moments happening at WordCamp, so totally with you.
Yeah, I love WordCamps.
So, all right, I think we're all fighting for. I'm actually kind of curious. What does your average day look like? Because I know you got a family, and you have all this work on top of you. Do you have like a typical schedule that you work, or is it every day is a little bit different, but it's the same as like this Tuesday is the same as last Tuesday, but you know, that kind of thing, or how does your day look?
Yeah, I'm definitely driven by my calendar at this point. You know, my kids are both very active, and you know, so one of the things my wife and I decided, like before we had kids, was that when we had kids, one of us was going to be home with them. And so that's, again, going back to why I quit my job way back when, is because we knew one of us would be with them. My wife's a teacher, so it made it easy for me to be a freelancer because she carries insurance. You know, we knew we were stable there. And so, yeah, I take my kids to school every morning. I pick them up from school every morning. I take them to dance most days, take them to all their activities and all that kind of stuff. So I'm definitely a mobile worker. I work from home, so I take them there. I kind of come home and work out in the morning. One of my friends, actually, this is a great thing I should have plugged earlier for the pick of the week, but one of my friends, John Hawkins, just created a website called Wadables, and it's a really great, like, it'll email you a workout every single day based on the kind of equipment you have at home. So I do that every morning since it's been out. It's been out for a few weeks now, and just to kind of get some exercise in there. Then I sit down at work and work until about 2. Pick up the kids about 2:30, and then this is actually where I spend most of my afternoons. Not this spot, but I'm over at the dance studio right now with the kids, and they're doing their thing about 20 hours a week, and I'm sitting out here about 20 hours a week. So I can't complain being in Southern California having weather like I do, so that I can sit out here and enjoy the outdoors while I work.
What kind of things do you do for fun, Brandon?
Well, I like to golf. I'm actually going. One of my friends from New York is actually out here this week. We're going to go play some golf on Wednesday, so that'll be cool. I like to, I don't know, do bowling. I just like to have fun, mostly with the kids. Like we like to go take trips down to the zoo for sure. And my son likes Legos and video games. We play those, and I love hanging out with my family. That's like my favorite thing to do. But if I'm not doing that, definitely doing stuff like that. Surfing when I have a chance. I don't know. Like just hanging around, I guess, with my kids is my biggest thing.
Just jumping back a little bit, do you foresee Pixel Jar introducing any new products outside of Adsanity in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely on our overall path. We have a list of things. Like, we always kind of keep a running list of ideas, right, of things that we could do, and we're always trying to diversify a little bit. We have, I'd say, 2 other big things that I think every service company will tell you this is, when we have time, we will do this. So it's not any today, tomorrow, or next week. It's much more fluid than that. But we definitely have a couple a plugin and some other platforming type things that we're working towards.
Do you handle all the support for Outsanity?
Up until we hired a project manager, I was doing most of it. Jeff was definitely jumping in there as well. But now that we have our project manager, I've sort of trained him on, like, most of our support requests are, about the same questions. So he's able to field most of those, whether it's something that we've already answered. We use Zendesk, so we have a bunch of predefined responses that he's able to use and modify to answer the questions. But most of the other things are pre-sales, which most people can probably get to from the website, but they'd rather talk to somebody. So he's able to field those and do that. So again, one of those production boosts for me is having him be able to answer a lot of the stuff that would take me, even just 15 minutes here or there, but it would take me out of my development flow. So definitely a good performance boost for me there.
Do you have some examples of anything that you would like to be doing more of in the future?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think where, like, the project that we're working on currently, we actually have had a bigger team working on, and it was actually nice to work in a little bit bigger of a team, having different responsibilities and things. It was a lot of work going on at one time, which I really liked, and I think potentially sometime soon we might grow a little bit. I think Jeff is he's leaning a lot more these days to doing operations type stuff for Pixeljar, and so he's splitting his time between that and front end development. And for me, like, I think we need to just branch out and get some more resources so that the amount of work that we're dealing with at any one time can be split up between more people. So I definitely think we could be growing a little bit in the coming future, and I think that having taken a lot of advice from many friends about how to grow, they sort of led us to the project manager being a key that we need, and that's really taken us a long way, and I think continuing to now that we have that, to offload some of that that time that we would be handling clients as well as training somebody on our projects and how we do things. Like, it will free us up a little bit to do that kind of stuff with new developers. So I think now that we have a little bit more infrastructure in place, we'll be doing that.
You say you follow a lot of, or you are pretty invested in understanding the underlying architecture in WordPress, as you're the back-end guy. So you follow a lot of WordPress core development?
I do, yeah. I mean, my official community role or team role in WordPress is WordPress deputy for the community team. So I spend a lot more of my time there, but I definitely follow up with the current development cycles and what's going on.
Interesting. Do you have any just kind of sitting back, joking around predictions about where WordPress development is going to go in the next year to two?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're entering a place where an app-like experience is definitely going to be more prevalent amongst the web, snappier things, faster UIs, things like that. So I think we're going to see a lot more JavaScript. Obviously, I think that's like a bad answer, because I think everyone thinks that at this point too, just because that's what Matt told us we're going to all be doing. But I think he's right. I mean, besides WordPress development, we're seeing a spread in technology, and for as much as WordPress is great about powering the back end of things, the front end hasn't really evolved that much. How the templating architecture and system really works is really pretty much stayed the same. And I think the JSON API is going to be a really good driver for different ways to do things. And I think companies that are major news sources are already driving some of that. I mean, you see people like Wired doing things that weren't really possible before, and you're going to continue seeing that. I mean, so many people are coming up with, here's how you're going to do applications with WordPress as the back end, and WordPress will continue to evolve, I think, towards that direction where it's being used as a data store. It has some really basic interfaces for dealing with content and how to store them and things like that. It's got a lot of those pieces built in already. So, and it has a familiar framework that people are used to. So I think you'll start seeing people using it more that way, and using it really more to power different kinds of applications, different kinds of websites, where these days you see a lot of different data feed type websites. Even projects that we've worked on have predominantly had data pulled from different places, because clients need to have their data coming from their sources and things like that don't necessarily mesh with WordPress, but can be used. WordPress can be used to display those things. So I think you definitely will see a lot more movement towards that direction.
Have you had an opportunity yet to use the new API in a project?
Yeah, we've used it for the Mavs. So they have actually coming up. They have some new features that are relying on data being pulled from WordPress into other applications. So everything that we've built is accessible to other places. So that's definitely one of the places that we're using it most.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So we've expressed how much we're big fans of WordPress, the world of WordPress, WordCamps, the community, and all that stuff. Just for discussion's sake, is there anything about the world of WordPress, technology-wise or community-wise, that really bothers you?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think my experience with WordPress has been so positive. I mean, everybody who I've learned from and who I share what I know to has been super positive. I mean, there's always going to be people who are sort of the vocal minority, and they don't sort of gel with the WordPress spirit, if you will. And I think those things kind of sort themselves out over time. I would say for anybody who is sort of worried about that kind of negativity at all, I think that those things tend to sort themselves out. And it's best to sort of focus on the positive things that the community brings, and really just focus on what what you are interested in, and other things really, like, there's so much stuff going on that there's no reason to really focus on that negative stuff, I guess.
So, you've been involved in the community for a very long time by most people's standards. What would you say are the biggest changes that you've seen specifically within the community itself?
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that this year has really been the first year that anyone outside of Automatic has been allowed to really handle WordCamp related things at the community level. There's always been a community team, but it's been largely driven by people who work in Automatic. And from when I first started organizing WordCamps in 2010, I think was the first year, so many changes have been made to not only policies around WordPress Foundation, things like that, but just infrastructure of WordCamp.org. And so where I think we are now is a really great spot, because we have a larger representation of what the community is actually like. We have more independents who are involved, who are vetting applications. They're looking and approving and moving them along, mentoring. A lot of that shared experience is being passed on from organizer to organizer. And from that perspective, I think there's been a huge amount of growth, and it's not something that a lot of people really recognize. It's not really something that people who are developing for WordPress necessarily have to interact with on a daily basis, because they're dealing mostly with code. But there's a ton of people who are involved in the WordPress community who don't write code, and who really just drive the mission of WordPress forward. And I think it's really grown a long way since I started.
So Brandon, I got one question for you. What advice would you give to somebody who's trying to grow a community, either with the WordPress, with meetups or WordCamps, or in general community in their area?
I would say find 2 friends and get started. I mean, it doesn't have to be really big. I think what we're seeing is used to, and over the last, I'd say probably 5 years, there's been this like build up to like mega WordCamps, right? And you have like these ones that are like, oh, I'm gonna go to this one because it's gonna have 1,500 people there and all this stuff, and you know, that's awesome that there's that big of a community or that big of a draw to come to an area to go, you know, to actually have people come to a WordPress thing. But WordCamps and meetups don't have to be that. I mean, it really has to be, you know, a few people sitting around a table talking about WordPress, and that's where I really got my start. The WordPress community in Orange County wasn't huge to start with. It was, you know, several people, and we all got real nerdy and geeky about once a month, and we have 3 meetups a month now because there's just that amount of variety in what we want to talk about. So I would say, you know, get on meetup.com. There's actually a WordPress chapter account for meetups, so you don't have to worry about paying fees for meetups. And you know, just start sitting around talking about WordPress.
Can you? What does that mean? So we have a local WordPress meetup, and I just paid my fees this month. So
Okay.
what does it mean?
All right. So the WordPress chapter account basically means you're officially recognized as part of the WordPress community. Like they will pay your fees for meetup.com, and they'll provide you resources. They do like surveys. They actually there's a whole training team in the WordPress community that provides things that you guys can talk about, and just it's a good way to sort of get publicity about your event too, because again, it's on the WordPress chapter account. So you'll have visibility through WordPress being officially, you know, as one of your organizers.
And I'll bet these other 2 guys knew all about this and never told me a thing.
Well, they just like to see you paying for it.
I didn't know you were paying for it. You never mentioned it.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good resources. Make.wordpress.org/community has all the things related to any sort of community things. So there's a whole handbook on meetups and things like that that can give you just kind of like tips and info for getting joined up with that. And,
Very cool. Well, Brandon, we're getting kind of down to the wire here, and this hour has gone by pretty quickly. We're super grateful that you spent all this time with us, and just have a couple quick questions for you before you go.
Sure.
One, really curious, what is on your calendar for 2016? Where are any places, events, WordPress related or otherwise, that people might bump into you at?
So I mentioned WordCamp San Diego. I'll definitely be there. WordCamp Orange County is coming up this summer. No date determined yet, but will be announced very soon. So I'll be there. WordCamp Europe, Jeff and I will both be at. So we're going to make the trip overseas to do that. LoopConf, I participated in last year, and I really enjoyed it. I think Ryan Sullivan does a great job with that, and it was really heavily developer focused. So I'll be there again this year. I think it's in Miami. And I don't know, there may be some other WordCamps in there. I'm sure we'll be at LA and Vegas and all the ones here on the West Coast, probably Phoenix as well. So, you know, the calendar always fills up, but those are what I have planned for right now.
Great. But I won't get to golf with you at Pressnomics then.
You will not, no. But if you come to Orange County, we will be having a golf tournament. So.
Oh, no kidding.
Yes, it's been going for a few years now, and it's definitely a fun one.
Sounds like a pretty cool attraction.
Yep.
So, who are some names of people you recommend we reach out to and get on future episodes of the show?
So I already mentioned Zach Tolman. He's super awesome, and like really, if there's ever a WordCamp that he's at that I'm going to, like I'm always going to be at his talk. Like that's just a staple for me. He's really awesome. I think one of my friends from the community team, Josepha Hayden, she's rad. I mean,
She's awesome. I agree.
Super cool, and really has a good pulse on what's good in the community. And she's now working at Automatic, and is working on the community team, like I said. So she's super cool. There's so many people. I think I think there's limit it down. Those are some good ones to start with.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll give you some more later.
Those are pretty good. Josefa, I'll say, is on the schedule already. 3 weeks.
All right.
3 weeks from today, she will be talking with us.
All right.
So I'm very much looking forward to that. And Zach, I've not had an opportunity yet to ask him, but he's high on the list of people I feel ashamed and sensitive about how I haven't got him on the show yet.
Yeah, you know who
Every
else?
time somebody brings them up, I just say, I know, all right?
Yeah. It's actually I'll add one more, and that's like I just mentioned him, Ryan Sullivan. But he's also just a really good guy. Got a really good business going, and I think what he's doing for developer-oriented WordPressy events is definitely in the right spot. So he's another good guy to talk to.
I think you're totally right. Obviously, since we had him on last July.
Boom.
Yeah, Ryan's a great guy. So, Brandon, is there anything else that we that maybe you wanted to talk about or pitch or plug that we didn't get to discuss before we close out?
No, not really. I mean, I'm terrible at blogging, so I can't give you a URL to find me. I'm blogging. I'm usually too busy working. But I think just for me, the biggest thing is get to know your local community. And WordPress is not it's not a lonely space if you just look around. So get to know people in your local area.
Thanks for that tip. Brandon, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you spending an hour of your evening talking with us, and I hope you go have some fun at the dance hall.
Whatever I'm at, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do for sure. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Brandon.
Cool.
Good to see you.
Yep.